Hi everybody, and welcome to Josiah is Right. So I have nothing prepared, no thoughts in my head. That sounds terrible. Like no preconceived notions of what I want to say, but Coleman Hough, one of my writing teachers and friends, passed away recently. Coleman, if you knew Coleman, the last 15, as long as I've known her for 15, 16 years, gosh. Around that time when I went to grad school, she was one of my teachers. I had multiple classes with her. She was my one-on-one advisor for my thesis project. So for my final project, she passed away. But if you know her life, it was battling Parkinson's for quite a long time. And with that, first thing is find her short film, The Diagnosis. It is absolutely brilliant about the struggle of health issues and how it feels to be in that world, as only Coleman could make it. It's got James Urbaniak as the doctor, and it is brilliant. It really is. It is truly brilliant. It's you feel it in having talked to her after the fact when she made it about what it was like to go through what she went through and how that piece of art came from that. And it is truly a great piece of art. And I don't just say that as, her former student that got a lot from her. I say it objectively or subjectively, I guess, with art, that it is just a great piece. It says something about something. But her life, the last time she and I spoke, I recall Penny was small. It was at least 5 years ago because we were still in our Garden Grove condo. And I remember standing on the balcony, and it was so hard because her Parkinson's was so bad that I couldn't understand her, and she was getting frustrated, and I was getting, like this. And that was the last time I talked to her. And then I didn't know what happened to her until I found out recently, within the last 6 months, that she was in a home, I believe by the Screen Actors Guild, that helps care for actors who have health issues that can't necessarily afford the treatment. And so she was there getting care, thankfully. And then, I just saw she passed, and it would have been her birthday, I think, yesterday or the day before. It's a blur. And I just wish I had reached out to her sooner. I lost Sid, my other mentor from SC. He was a much older man, so it's doesn't hit the same way. It was hard. They're both hard. But those two people, I credited them on my short film that I made because Coleman and Sid taught me two very different teachers about writing, and Coleman was the renegade and going at it from different perspectives and attacking it strangely and less systematically, and Sid was figuring it out, but they both came together more than any two specific writing teachers I had to create whatever I am as a writer and largely as a person. And I will miss Coleman. I'm so sad she didn't get to meet my daughters. That's the hardest part maybe to swallow. She couldn't have just met them once. And that's on me. But I guess the point of me making this video isn't for me to cry on the cameras. Find her work. Go read the screenplay for Full Frontal. That movie name is horrible. Harvey Weinstein changed it. It was supposed to be something like How to Survive a Hotel Room Fire. And she found this list from 100 years ago that was How to Survive a Hotel Room Fire, an actual thing that sort of helped her when she was writing that screenplay. And it was supposed to be framed around each of those items on the list being a segment of the film. And the flow of that movie that comes in the film by Steven Soderbergh is from Coleman's writing that just flows and goes. And the writing is brilliant. And watch another Soderbergh film she collaborated on with Bubble, which is a very interesting, kind of weird film about non-actors performing as if they work in this doll factory, but they're amateurs directed by a professional filmmaker in Soderbergh. And watch that film, but then really watch, there was a special feature on the DVD that showed Coleman and how she related to the actors, and it was written in the way that she would relate to them and talk to them and communicate with them and find the story that way. It was such a interesting, different dynamic that it's a thing that was made for Coleman to do and only Coleman. I can't see another person in the world doing what she did in that scenario. And whether that movie works or succeeds in itself is another question, but if it has any chance, it has a chance because of Coleman. So watch those things. She's written plays and things that you've never seen or heard of. Written screenplays that I was lucky enough to get to read as we would work on projects and bounce things off each other. She was a truly great writer. And I hope more of her work can maybe get out there now that if it exists or who, but find what is there. The diagnosis, the short film is brilliant, and the screenplay for Somewhere on This Shelf is my copy of Full Frontal that I got when I was a student, and the screenplay that she wrote, and it is truly shows how great she is. And watch the film, but I think the screenplay is better than the film, and it shows you what it could have been, and ignore that name again. But so go find Coleman's work. That's it. Thank you so much for your time. Anybody that is new here, because maybe you knew Coleman. If you knew Coleman, you loved Coleman. That was what it was. Even though I was, as a writing student, I think I was a challenge for her, because I think I used to have this thing where I knew what the story is. I had a will for the story, and she told me this, and it wasn't until she kind of like helped me see that it wasn't just what I wanted it to be, but what it had to be. And it's just like almost like a sort of in a like fluttery way, she would like just pluck and do this. And you come in, what about this? And she would ask these questions that were just, you think were bizarre on the surface, but then were just so intriguing to what it said about your work. And I hated that at first, but I grew to love it as I understood that I was being challenged as a writer and as a person. And the novel, The Paperboy, which hopefully will be out soon, that story started as a screenplay in Coleman's class. And it was vague ideas I had for years, and it wouldn't have existed if not for Coleman in multiple ways, but specifically she said, draw a map of your story. And I couldn't think of a map of my story, so I drew the map I used to draw when I was a kid and had delivered to the newspapers and someone was taking over. And I drew that map, and that was the start of understanding my story. It broke things open for me in a way that I didn't expect. Coleman, I guess I wish she was able to see me saying this about her and how much I love her and care for her as a person, as a teacher. So your tribute to her and my tribute to her is find her work, watch her films, they're out there, and if you knew her, share why you loved her, because we all did.
This morning's coming, and my lover, he is gone, and I am so sad, so blue. I think I will make me some coffee, and then I will get back in bed. And it's just something about she never thought, she killed him, basically. He's dead.
Keep going.
I never